What I want to talk about this morning is one of the most incredible concepts in our teaching. It's something that I caught onto right away when I found Science of Mind. And as you can see, it's the idea of realization. Now, realization means a number of things, but the thing that we're going to talk about, the way I'm defining it for what we're talking about today is as the act of becoming fully aware of something. The act of becoming fully aware of something. It's like you didn't know it, and then you knew it. And everything's different. It's a realization. It's going from something that isn't real to something that's real. And it's something we do in mind. It's the only place it can happen. And it is an exceptionally important part of this teaching. Now, you might say, well, okay, that's realization, I get it. But what does it look like? What does realization look like? Well, it looks something like this. It's like, whoa, I get it. I just realized that this was so. It just occurred to me that this is the way it is. Whatever words you want to put to it, it really doesn't matter, but it's that going from nothing to something important, something big, something powerful, something that changes the game. I have a realization. And this is an important part of our teaching. In fact, Ernest Holmes named the third step of treatment realization. Now you may say, third step of treatment, I call affirmation or I call declaration. Those are fine words. Those are fine concepts. But Ernest first called it realization. And he had good reason to do that. Because realization requires no effort. You can't push your way to realization. You can't work your way to realization. It's just there. When we take on the position, the posture that we believe that there is universal good in the world, we have created a realization in our lives that will change every situation. Now, does that mean that we don't still find things to complain about? That we don't feel like things aren't going the way we wanted? And that we fall into those traps? Yes, we do. We do that all the time. But that's not the truth. That's not the place. If we have that realization within us, if we are certain that that is true, that there is universal good, then we let all that other stuff go. And we remember the truth. Because having a spiritual realization takes us to truth. And that's what this is, this idea of universal good. Just one of the starting points. And that actually comes out of the introduction. Then we're going to go to chapter 8, the power of thought. A realization of the presence of God is the most powerful healing agency known to the mind of man. So what he's saying is that when we realize that God is omnipresent, everywhere present, which is something that I have to share with you that our brothers and sisters and the more traditional Christian faiths haven't come to grips with yet. Because when they say God is omnipresent, what they're saying is that God is watching you. No. If God is omnipresent, then God is present everywhere without exception. That means that God is present at the point of me and the point of you. That you can be nothing else because there is nothing else. There's nothing else present, only God. That's it. That's a realization. That changes everything. So when we realize that truth in our lives, we have an entirely different construct for how life is. It looks different. And our job is always to see God in the midst of whatever is going on. Because God doesn't make mistakes. God doesn't do things wrong. God doesn't have bad days. That's us. But when we let go of that idea and know the truth of us and realize that that presence is absolute in every way, we can only get the benefit of it. The greatest healing agency, the most powerful healing agency there is. Meaning it takes us away from the problem into the truth. As I suspected, My batteries are gone. No, there we go. Well, that may be back there. Thought which is built upon a realization of the divine presence has the power to neutralize negative thought, to erase it, just as light has the power to overcome darkness. Not by combating darkness, but by being exactly what it is, light. The light does not go to war with darkness. It just is the light. In the same way, our realization of the presence of the divine doesn't need to be an effortful, energy-filled struggle to get to a place to know that. And he calls it negative thought, and he uses the word negative a fair amount in his writing. Doesn't matter what you want to call it. If you have a thought that's not working, if you have a thought that troubles you or confuses you or causes you to think that something isn't working, the realization of God's presence right where you are washes that away automatically. Absolutely. The realization of that is what makes the difference. You getting the idea here? That this idea of having a spiritual realization makes life work, makes life the way we say we want it. If we can let go of the old trappings of thinking that something's wrong and move into that realization of the presence of the divine, everything's working. Everything's working all the time. Every problem is primarily mental, and the answers to our problems will be found in spiritual realization. Every answer to every problem, no exceptions. So this is what we teach ourselves to do. When we think there's a problem, when something didn't go the way we expected it to, is to take a breath, to know absolutely that God's in the midst of it, and find it. Just find it. I've been doing this for years. Sometimes it takes me a while. Sometimes it's instant. Oh, I get it. I see why this is happening. I see what I did or I thought. It all makes sense if I'll just take a moment and see it. And that's not blaming. That's recognizing how things come. We're constantly in a creative process. Our entire lives are about the creative process. We're creating our lives with every thought, with every word that we speak, with every action that we take. And when it turns out a way that we don't like it, oh yeah, okay, I did that. And the beauty of that is when you say to yourself, I did that, that means you can change it with a different thought, with a different word, with a different action. You can make it change. We can all do that. What a gift. What a powerful thing to know. All manifestation of life is from an invisible to a visible plane through the silent, effortless process of spiritual realization. As I was saying, when we realize the presence, it takes no effort. It takes no we don't have to go to war. We don't have to try. We don't have to struggle. There's nothing to it but going, yes, yes. So I had an opportunity this week to have a conversation with someone who comes to our center regularly, who was in a bit of what looked like a dilemma. They had been told by their landlord that there was a possible sale pending and that at some point they might have to move. But they didn't really have any information until they came and said to her this week, well, we sold the property and you got to be out in 30 days. Now, she had been looking for a place for some time in preparation. She wasn't sitting on her hands. She was looking. And she knew where she wanted to live, the area she wanted to live in. She knew what kind of place she wanted. And she was doing her due diligence to create that in her life. But she hadn't found the place. So she called. And I listened to the story, and, everything she said was accurate. But there was something greater to know. And the beauty of it is that I don't have to move. So it makes it really easy for me to know somebody else is going to do that. So we traded. And we traded just knowing the truth. And what I could see as I spoke my words, as they came forth, I could see a lovely place. A place where she was surrounded by people that she liked. A place that was comfortable and easy. It was in the area she wanted to live in. And it was effortless. It was just easy. And it was actually a lovely, enjoyable experience. I didn't feel at the end of the treatment as though I'd put any effort out at all. It was just easy to see. And the cool thing was she only needed one place. This was it. This was going to work. So a couple hours later, she called me back and said, I found a place. I'm going to go see it tomorrow. And she did. She went and saw it the next day and signed a lease. Resolved. Effortlessly. No problem. No challenge. Boy, when you're facing that big brick wall that's so high you can't see the top. You can't see that way and you can't see that way. All you see is a wall. It seems impossible. But when we realize the truth of our lives, that we're creating our lives, we're in charge. We have the power. And the power is not an effortful power. It's simply a knowing. And when we are clear and we realize that is true, that brick wall comes tumbling down. And we walk straight through. It's just like that. So I have some quotes from other people. I went looking beyond Holmes to see what other people might have to say about it, and I found some. We'll go through these pretty quickly. Achievements in life are momentary, but realizations are long-lasting. How long-lasting? The rest of your life. This is from Avatar Singh Danjal, who lives in India, I believe, if he's still with us on this plane. Long-lasting. This is Alan Watts, the great English philosopher. The relationship to self, to others, is the complete realization that loving yourself is impossible without first loving everything defined as other than yourself. Isn't that brilliant? That's a great realization, is that love cannot be just contained around you, and then you have distrust and dislike and hatred for others in the world. It doesn't work like that. The only way you can truly love yourself is by loving everything and everyone. Everything and everyone. Back to the universality of all love, of all life. We cannot disconnect ourselves from life. That's a realization that is powerful and continues to touch our lives, to remember that what we think of others is what we think of ourselves. It's a great healing tool. Attachment to the divine leads to the realization that the nature of the seer, you're the seer, and the divine are the same. Attachment to the divine. So when we understand the true nature of life, when we understand what the divine is, then we must find it at the point of ourselves. No exception. We are the creators of our experience, of our lives. We are God, knowing God with one another. That's a great realization. That's a powerful realization. A.G. Mohan is a yoga master. He's been doing this for decades, teaching people how to find God in movement in our bodies. And when we know that God is present in us, we can do amazing things, truly amazing things. Yes. Okay. And this is Angela Burt Murray. She's an American author and best known as a editor and publisher of a number of magazines in the United States. And she says that true happiness comes from the realization that God has already made available everything we will ever need. Everything we will ever need is already there. There's nothing to want for. There's nothing to struggle for. There's nothing to push for in our lives. I got some emails early on when Barbara was diagnosed that if Barbara Waterhouse has that problem, then this thing really doesn't work. That's not true. That's not true. the work that we do requires us at times to go deeper, to be clearer about who we are. You want to come up here? And although to many it may look like we haven't a clue about what we're talking about, and that this is all just a lot of hogwash. But I don't believe that that's true. I believe that everything that we have in our life that looks like a challenge is there for a purpose. It fits perfectly into who we are and what we're here to do. So we've been on this journey. So we began our work to look deeply and to realize that something else was going on. And without knowing what I could possibly expect from it, I called Dr. McAllister's office. They had a cancellation and could see us the next day. Normally you wait weeks. And we went and saw Dr. McAllister. And we talked. And we talked about options. And then she said, "What do you want?" And I said, "We both want that tumor out of Barbara's body." And she said, "Okay, we'll take it out." Now, all of this, since the first PET scan, that little spot on her pelvis has been gone. It's gone. There doesn't seem to be any other cancer in her body, just this tumor. Dr. McAllister was quite impressed on how small it was compared to where it was a year ago.
Yes.
But on January 4th, Barbara will have that cancer taken out of her body. This would not be possible without recognizing the presence, without knowing who you are. So you're in charge, you know that.
Yes.
And you made this happen.
Yes.
And I believe that all these people love you and support you as you go through this.
Yes. Yes.
And that we continue this extraordinary journey with some new possibilities.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Oh, and by the way, my oncologist tells me when my treatments are complete on January 7th, 3 days later, that I will be in complete remission too.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And then we go to work on the stroke symptoms.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We got a plan, right?
Yes.
Okay, we do. We
Yes.
do. Yeah. So thank you for allowing us to share this with you.
Thank you.
I believe in the power of realization.
Yes.
And I believe that by accepting the truth, no matter what life looks like, that we can have the life we choose. Absolutely. And as much as I know that for myself and for my beloved, I know it for you as well.
Yes.
Know it for yourself.
Yes.
It'll make all the difference.
Yes.
God bless you.
Yes.